Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you all had a lovely lunch. We'd like to move to the next segment of our afternoon. I'd like to introduce you to the MC for this segment, and that's Jay Christie. Jay's over to my right. Jay is a committee member of Western Australian Humanists. She is a co-convener of the Secular Coalition of Australia, and she's a language teacher from WA. I'd like to hand over to Jay. Thank you.
Don't want any accidents. No accidents. Okay, so for this section I would just like to introduce the speakers to start off, so that we don't have to be chopping and changing and backwards and forth. So I will first introduce the first speaker, Lara Wood. Then I will give a formal introduction for Kathy Byrne, because I think it's important. And then Marion, needing no further introduction, is welcome to come back up in third place slot for the education section. Lara Wood is the campaign coordinator of Fairness in Religions in School, which was co-founded by Scott Hedges and Tim Heasley, I hope I'm saying his surname correctly, in 2011 in Victoria. Mother to 7-year-old daughter, Lara joined FIRIS, or FIRIS, however we want to say, after her daughter was directly affected by Special Religious Instruction, or SRI, in her public school. Lara is tremendously hardworking and a dedicated activist who proudly stands up for a secular education system for all Australian children. Welcome, Lara. Kathy Byrne, just going back a bit. Dr. Kathy Byrne is a long-time academic and activist in the area of religion in public schools. She has volunteered with Together for Humanity, a New South Wales and Queensland Department of Education sponsored organisation which runs anti-prejudice workshops in schools. She's a member of St James Ethics Centre as well, busy lady, mother of 3, and a tutor in sociology at Southern Cross University. Kathy's in-depth book, which is was for sale, not anymore, gone away, hope everyone got in, is on sale now, and it is entitled Religion in Secular Education, in bookstores now. So I'd like to hand over to Lara Wood, who will give us an in-depth discussion about what she does with FIRIS in Victoria. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay. Hi, I'm Lara, and I've come all the way from Melbourne today. I'm the campaign coordinator for FIRIS, which stands for Fairness in Religions in Schools. In school, rather. It's a secular, grassroots, parent-run campaign which operates to remove special religious instruction, or SRI, from public primary schools. We're based in Victoria, but we also assist parents from schools in other states, as this is a problem Australia-wide. We are the only organisation devoted to this issue. The aims of FIRIS are to maintain an inclusive school curriculum that does not require any student to withdraw from class on account of different religious beliefs, formally cease the practice of volunteer-run special religious instruction during school hours, follow an objective, fair and balanced comparative syllabus for education about religions and beliefs, treat all religious organisations who wish to use the school facilities outside of the school day with transparent and equitable policies. FIRIS is a successful campaign, having had a direct impact on the number of schools offering SRI in Victoria. And here's a graph to demonstrate the decline in numbers since the campaign was launched at the beginning of 2011. There's been roughly a 30% drop in SRI. Part of our success is how we work with members of the mainstream religious groups. we demonstrate that Access Ministries does not represent the beliefs of mainstream Christianity. They are an extreme evangelical organisation, and that is what we keep repeating. We don't want to be labelled as anti-religious, and that is what, or an atheist group. That is how you win this fight. Why is SRI in public schools today? Okay, what I've got here is a section of the Victorian Education Act from 2006. So in Victoria, the Education Act of 2006 provides for special religious instruction. It clearly says that education in government schools is to be secular. However, there is an exception, which is explained in section 2 to 11, as it says there. This exception says that special religious instruction may be given in a government school in accordance with this section. The significant and most important word here is may, and this one word has formed a large part of our campaign lately. This is because the government has taken the word may in the Act and turned it into must in their legislation. And these are the SRI guidelines in Victoria. You can see here in the SRI guidelines that it says principals must arrange for the provision of SRI where an accredited and approved instructor is available. Therefore, the department has turned may into must, and we have been arguing for some time that may equals may. This also has a lot to do with Joe Kelly's case, where he's removed SRI from his school in Cranbourne South. Of course, this is only relevant to Victoria, but all states have some sort of exception to their secular education. Okay, what is religious instruction? Now, some of you will know a lot about this and others will know very little, so I'm going to go into it here. In Victoria, SRI is conducted in around half of all government primary schools. 96% of SRI is delivered by Access Ministries, which is an evangelical organisation. The classes run for 30 minutes once a week during the core curriculum time. They are taught by church volunteers who have received as little as 6 hours training. Parents are given the option for their child not to participate, but the consent form supplied is very much designed to promote the program as a value-based and fully endorsed by the government, which is not the case. FIRIS is very concerned that parents are not only denied informed choice, but are also being misled into thinking that this program is run by qualified teachers in the study of all religions. We need to be very clear that we are not talking about religious education. This is instruction. Students are not taught about different religions or different festivals, history or architecture. They are being instructed on what to believe. In the case of Access Ministries, they are told that a belief in Jesus Christ is the only way into heaven. The lessons using the curriculum Religion in Life, developed by Access, centre on forming a personal relationship with Jesus and focus on making him their special friend who they can talk to by praying and to please him by being kind to others. If there are any values within the curriculum, it is always taught in the context of this is what Jesus would do. Creationism is also taught in the program, telling the children that God created the world and everything in it, including us in his image. There is a song produced by Access Ministries about creationism called Creation Rap. It's a rap song. Students are guided into having a positive emotional response to hearing that God and Jesus loves them. And this is an example This is a lesson for grade 1 students, so we're talking about 6 to 8 year olds. So we've got a lesson on the right hand side that says, hearing that I am special to God makes me feel happy, excited, confident, warm inside and puzzled. All the answers except one are positive. And on the bottom left we've got what looks like a party invitation, and where it says cut this out and give it to somebody. And my daughter actually received one of these party invitations from her best friend who does CRE. It was filled out, Dear Leah, you are special to God and me, from Zoe, one of her good friends. And of course my daughter doesn't do SRI, but it was handed to her in the playground one day, and she was very excited to receive it. And then she handed it to me when I picked her up from school and said, oh, look what I've got. And I thought it was a birthday invitation. And then later in the car, on the way home in the car, she asked me about what God is and what it means to be special to God and that sort of thing. So the curriculum encourages children to evangelise to other children and other children that don't participate in the SRI. Here's another lesson where children are exposed to a very shallow and fundamental form of Christianity and a view that Christianity is the only way to eternal salvation. Here the example is reinforced by saying that a reflection on Jesus' death and why to bring God's forgiveness to all those who believe in Jesus. So it's sending the message to children that you can only be forgiven if you believe in Jesus. Okay. Here's another one, and this one is for the first year at school, and in Victoria we call that prep, the prep year, and I think in New South Wales it's called kindergarten, is that right? Yeah. So in this lesson, students aged 5 are taught that God made everything and that they can pray to thank Him. So we're touching on creationism here, and typically a lesson is concluded with getting the children to pray, and an example of a prayer which is in the teacher's book that goes with this lesson is, Dear God, thank you for the beautiful world that you made. Thank you especially for all the amazing plants and animals you made. Amen. So this is teaching about creationism. Okay, now this next slide will start playing music. So I'll just explain it first. Also, the 5-year-olds are taught that the best book to read is the Bible, but not in an educational way. They have this drummed into them by a song written by Colin Buchanan called The Best Book, and I thought that you might like to listen to it.
Book to read is the Bible. The best book to read is the Bible. If you read it every day, it will help you on your way. Oh, the best book to read is the Bible. Sing it again, shall we?
I'll spare you that. But look, believe it or not, folks, this song is taught to children in the prep year, the kindergarten year, and to reinforce to the children that the Bible is the best book for them to read and know. Okay, Access claim that their curriculum is educational, but it is clear to demonstrate that it is nothing but indoctrination. The volunteers hand out gifts to the children such as lollies, Bibles and even religious pencils, like this one, The Light of Jesus Shines in Me. This makes the children not doing SRI feel left out, and also gifts like this promote the agenda to evangelise. Not only are there problems with proselytising, but children are segregated as a result of the policy. Often the children who are opted out have to sit in the hallway and are made to feel different from their peers and can feel as if they have done something wrong. Also, a lot of parents let their children participate only so they are not separated from their class. But more commonly, it is because parents simply don't know anything about the program. I would like to point out that the examples of the Access curriculum I have just put up are used in schools Australia-wide, not just Victoria. Okay. Going on to our recent campaign successes, and must I just stress that Jo Kelly is not part of our organisation, but I just thought I would feature some recent media down in Melbourne. FIRIS works closely with our media contacts to keep this issue in the public spotlight. On Monday, The Age in Melbourne reported a huge campaign victory. It broke the story of how Principal Jo Kelly had removed Access Ministries from his primary school. And I will now hand you over to Jo so he can tell his story.
Thanks, Lara, and thank you very much for the organisers. By definition, principals are very conservative and shy people. I don't occupy this space with any great degree of comfort or at ease, but the cause deserves it, so I'm prepared to be here. I'd rather that picture of those gorgeous kids you had up there earlier, because they're the children I work with, and I have worked with them for over 40 years. This is my 40-year service badge from the department. That's all I got. 40 years, club sandwiches and a cup of tea. However, and it's with that sense of commitment to public education that I'm prepared to stand publicly. Yeah, look at them. I'm going to get sidetracked. I've got stuff here I want to say, but listen, this is what I work with every day. How privileged am I? It is such a privilege. And somebody's going to ask me later, I'm going to get in first, I'm deviating from all my notes. Why did it happen to me? Because 3 years ago I was blindly agreeing with all of this stuff in my school. It was because of these kids. I had a chance sighting of the International Space Station going over Melbourne one weekend. I went to school the next day and I spoke about it. And I wanted to get kids excited about science and space exploration and so on. A week later, I even put it in the newsletter, I spoke about it at the school assembly. A week later, I heard some children talking out in the foyer. It was raining outside, so typical Melbourne. And at the end of the day, and I went out and I said, oh, did any of you take up the invitation to check it out? And did mums and dads go online to check out the websites where you can track the International Space Station? And some children said, yes, it was really good. And one little boy popped up and said, yeah, but how did this big world all happen? And this little 8-year-old girl said, oh, it's all in the Bible. Well, that did it for me. Not on my watch was I going to have children thinking and having their own intellectual thoughts and potential ruined or compromised in that kind of way. It prompted me to have a much closer look at the material, and also to do something I have to confess. I started visiting classrooms and observing these lessons from the beginning to the end. Not impressed. And one of the first things I noticed, and I felt a great sense of distress, was when the teacher says, we have SRI children. Now, will John, Jack, Mary, Bill, blah, 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 please stand up and go to the back of the room or to the next classroom and so on. And I'm sitting quietly in the corner. They knew I was there. a little unusual for the principal just to be sitting in the back corner observing and saying nothing. But this is the kind of thing that was happening. And I found that very, very distressing. So I continued and embarked on a program of familiarising myself with all the material, all the articles I could find to form an opinion. And I thank Marion for contributing to my judgment on this issue. That's David Senior from Monash. And I concluded that what was happening in my school was not up to the standard of educational practice that I expect. Full stop. Really get back on track. Out of the, tell me when to stop, okay? You must tell me when to stop because otherwise I'll go on through. After the news media attention this week too, I mean there's so many issues. Where do you start? I'm just going to bring two of them to your attention. There's two issues that kept cropping up. The first one was parent choice and the view that parents have a choice to have their children involved in this kind of program. Well, this is what I say to that. Yes, parents have a choice. Oops, let me just get rid of this. Is that happening? Yeah, parents do have a choice. They have a choice to go and enrol their children in a faith-based school. They have a choice to send their children to church on Sundays, the mosque on Saturday, or on Friday rather, the synagogue on Saturday. And they also have a choice to have their children get involved in religious instruction any time out of school hours. And as far as I'm concerned, it seems to me that the parents who choose not to choose SRI, they're the people missing out. It's their decision that's being compromised. They have chosen to send their children to a public school for a good education and for an inclusive schooling and experience. It is these parents whose choice is being compromised and their children's education that's being equally compromised by being handed busy work and assigned to the corridor or another classroom, or worse still, sent to the back of the room in earshot of stories about how God made cows, or that your pet dog's going to hell because it doesn't have a soul. Have I made that up? No. That's the kind of stuff kids are hearing in these sessions. And there's more. In Victoria, principals, one of those musts, there's about 6 of them, of which I'm ignoring. One of them is that principals must direct their teachers when SRI takes place in their classrooms. The teacher must not teach the core curriculum. In other words, I have to instruct a teacher to suspend their basic professional obligations. What do you say about that? I mean, I'm not prepared to do that. The second theme that's come up over the last week, of course, is the issue of values. Parents and teachers alike are grossly offended by the suggestion that in our public schools we're not interested or we don't take any serious concerns regarding the teaching of values. How wrong are they? Our children are constantly having values of all sorts being presented to them by you as parents from the moment they're born, and certainly by teachers in authentic, real situations in every school, every day, in virtually every, and certainly every classroom. At my school, we run the You Can Do It program. Anybody familiar with that? Okay, so if you're involved in education and you want to explore that, by all means, go and Google it. It's a great program. It promotes the 5 keys of success, and the core purpose of the program is the development of young people's social and emotional capabilities. The 5 keys to the success are confidence, persistence, organisation, getting along, and resilience. I'm just going to read something from their website. The central to the development of these 5 foundations are the 12 habits of mind, including accepting myself, taking risks, being independent, giving effort, working tough, setting goals, being tolerant of others, thinking first, playing by the rules, and social responsibility. Does that cover values? It certainly does. And this last point includes the value of caring, the social responsibility aspect. The last point includes values such as caring, doing your best, freedom, honesty, integrity and respect, and tolerance and inclusion. And it's this last value, and maybe others, that clearly goes out the window when SRI walks into the classroom. The You Can Do It program is established by Professor Michael Bernard from the University of Melbourne, and it's accompanied by significant professional development for teachers and resources. It's a true educational program. Professor Bernard is also the co-founder of the Australian Institute for Rational Emotive Behaviour Therapy. How relevant is that in this debate? Another feature of my own school is the teaching or the use of teaching strategies known as cooperative learning structures. Embedded in every one of these structures, firstly, is the aim to improve academic performance and social development simultaneously. So our schools, our great public schools, are doing a great job on the issue of values. And I will not let anyone get away with saying otherwise. I could go on, but I think 1 minute. Okay. It says there. Finally, the one fundamental question I would be asking anyone who wants to propose bringing SRI into my school or any public school is, what justification can you offer for allowing religious instruction into a primary school classroom, given that it involves the exclusion of children on the grounds of religion? Just give me one justification and I'm listening. As I mentioned earlier, and I'll leave this as my final note, my commentary on this is purely educational. It was after considerable consideration of all the issues, as I mentioned earlier, and I concluded in a very formal way to Access Ministry that what was being delivered in my school did not meet the standards of educational practice that I expect in a school setting. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Joe.
Just a sec. It'll come up, just take a sec.
Can we get the slides back up?
It's coming up. It's coming up.
Oh,
Takes a minute to power up.
speaking anyway. Okay. All right, I'm going to talk about OAC Ministries now, and a lot of you wouldn't have heard of them. FIRIS has also been successful in removing an extreme evangelical group called OAC Ministries from public schools. This Christian group has a close relationship with Access Ministries and was gaining entry to schools through the SRI volunteers. OAC has been conducting hundreds of religious seminars in schools all over Victoria for years without the knowledge or authorisation of the Department of Education. These religious seminars were often described to parents as values seminars, or parents were not even made aware of them. During these seminars, OAC conducted puppet shows where the puppet tells the kids that the way to get to heaven is to be best friends with Jesus. When FIRIS alerted this to the department, they had no idea who OAC were or that they were operating in the schools. FIRIS was able to show that this group was breaching the guidelines and was proselytising to students through their religious seminars. As a consequence, a directive was issued in December to all principals, alerting them not to allow groups such as OAC to operate in their schools. We were also able to link OAC and Access Ministries to show the department that Access had breached their accreditation and position of trust in the schools. This has significantly damaged their brand and eroded the relationship they have with the department. OAC has been successfully removed in Victoria, but they are still operating in schools across Australia. In Western Australia, OAC is run by a fellow called Jeff Westlake, and you can see Jeff here. He's giving a presentation at a school, and you probably can't make out what's on the screen up there, but it says, "If God forgives our sin, we can be friends with God." So the kids are obviously being told that they have sin. Just like Victoria, OAC go into public schools and give religious seminars, but they are advertised in school newsletters as value seminars, and parents aren't made to fill out a permission form or give any information. Jeff advises schools that under the government guidelines, all schools legally need to do is put it in the newsletter. Religious seminars by OAC are also conducted in Queensland schools. Other states can follow our lead and copy what we have done to remove them in their schools. There will also be a branch of FIRIS opening up in Western Australia very soon, headed by Jay Christie. We also hope to expand into other states such as Queensland down the track. As I explained at the beginning, you don't win a campaign like this by being anti-religious. You win by taking a stand for secular education in the public school system. You win by demonstrating that these groups, Access Ministries, OAC, Ecoris, Scripture Union, Hillsong and Generate, who are operating in our schools today, do not represent mainstream Christianity. That they are fundamentalist organisations and are not endorsed by major religious leaders or the majority of Christians. By doing this, you gather support from not only the atheist and agnostic communities, but people from other faiths as well as moderate Christians. The key is to argue for schools to be secular. And finally, my colleague and friend Scott Hedges would like me to ask, what will it take for us to get a political ally on this issue? And I'd just like to say thank you, and you can get more information by logging on to our website, religionsinschool.com, or going to our Facebook page, which is always full of interesting posts and comments, facebook.com/secular schools, or just do a Google search for FIRIS. Thank you very much.